Hello, welcome guys. So today we're going to discuss about the adword API script. So in the last video we gave the overview, and today we're going to discuss about the programs which extracts the data from Google using the login information, and then extracts the data and then loads it into MySQL database. So I have a couple of programs. The first program is the get um, the cause data for all the MCC accounts. So before that, before we get into the programs, one thing you have to know is that to make the program work, you have to really download the adword API library, and then you have to set up your credential information. So that information is in this folder. So when you download, it creates this folder. So go to under src Google API ads, and then under, if you're using v this folder, adwords folder, you have two files, auth.ini and setting.ini. So here in this particular case, you have to set all these credentials. So email, password, user agent, application token, developer token. So if you are using an MCC account, you need the developer token. You can ignore the application token. You need this information, email, password, user agent. Also you can put any standard random. It should be just like a string, and then you have to client ID. Now since MCC account deals with multiple clients IDs, so what you can do is that if you have just only one client, then you can put the client ID, or you can put it and then reset it again from your script, and that's what we are going to show you how it happens. So I'm going to show you now a program which gets all the keywords for all the multiple MCC accounts. So it gets the keyword performance report, which is basically keyword level report on a daily basis. So I've got two functions here, and then I have some PHP. So this is again a PHP program. It uses the Google's PHP libraries to extract the data. So here I include the Google libraries. So the directory name, the file, this really call, this PHP call basically gets the current folder name where the script exists. So if the script runs, then whatever the current folder, this one would return that information, and then with respect to that, it will add this much. It will add this path to access. So for example, because if you see my program, it's on this level. It is at this level, right? It is at under Google, it is there. So it will return Google, and then it will add AW API. So because AW API stays at the same level at Google, so that's why you have that. If AW API would have been under, let's say, data, then you probably would have to go something like data. Or sometimes if it has a different level, so then you can also do relative pathing like that. So anyway, so that's my this, and then what I do is that in a report date, so every day I'm extracting the last day's data. So I have a PHP call using the date function, and then string to time, I get the yesterday's date. So this report would run whenever it runs, it gets the last day's record, which is kind of complete. So typically you would run it maybe 5 or 6 a.m. in the night as a cron job from a Linux server, and then it will get the last day's data. So I have a simple echo statement, and then I have a call to get all clients reports. So what I'll get all clients report does is that, let's say I have 3 client accounts under my MCC login, and then what this would do is that it will first create the data directory. So here I check first if the data directory exists. And what is my data directory? Directory is my data underscore the date, so which is like this. So underscore date. So if I run it for, let's say, today, which is 11/25th, or maybe which is 11/26th, it will come here and create 11/25 folder. So So once the folder gets created, then I have, let's say I have 3 client accounts. So you put the emails of all the client accounts, and then you put them in a array, and then for each of the array, what you do is that you call the get keyword for client function, and you pass the client name, the report date, and the value. So what is the value here? The value is really your client email. So you're passing the client email, and then what I'm doing here is that client name, I'm extracting it. So let's say if the client email is abc@gmail.com, I'm extracting the abc name out of it, and I'm passing it as a client name. So that is about this function. So now let's explore the get kw report for client function. So here this is a keyword performance report sample. If this code or a version of this code you will find in any of Google AdWords API doc. This is basically a code which extracts the keyword performance report. So what you do is that you first instantiate a AdWord user, and then you set the client ID. So remember, if you are extracting for one client, you can use auth.ini to set the client ID. But if you have to do for all clients, probably you need something like this, where you dynamically assign the client IDs using set client ID. And then depending on which versions you are using, you can use get report definition service, and I'm using v2010-03, so I have put that. And then you put the fields which you want to extract, so and you put it in a selector. So as you see, I am extracting lots of fields like ad network type, destination URL, is negative, and all that. And the list of these fields which is available you can get in this place. Now keyword performance report, the list of fields, and if you see the URL, it is at code.google.com. Now it's difficult to remember the URL, so what you do is that you can search with keyword performance report columns and then get this list. So I am copy pasting this, and I'll post it in my forum for you to one challenge I have seen AdWords API documentation. There is extensive amount of documentation available, but sometimes I found the documentation sometimes is too much. So I have sometimes get my answers quickly instead of reading all the documents by posting into the forum. So what another small tips to share with you is that AdWords forum is pretty good. Whenever you have any problem, just post it there, and Google AdWords API support team is very very good in responding the answers with answers. So please please use that as a good resource for your AdWords API related questions. So coming back to our code, so then after you define the fields, then this is a standard code which is for keyword performance report. Now for extracting the yesterday, you do you set the date range type to yesterday. You set the report name as, this name could be a random name, but you add a variable element, because every time you run this report, it creates a report within Google's interface. So if you have the same name, then it might cause some issues. So just put a time so that it will always create a different report with a different name. And then you say keyword performance report. So this name has to be, this string has to be just like this, and then you set the CSV, and then you add the selector. Now for if you're running the report for a historical, let's say you want to get all 6 months of historical data, then what you do is that you comment out this line, and then you set a custom date, and then excuse me, and then here you can add the date range to your selector with a from and to dates in this format. And then after that, so this is a part of get report definition service. So what you do is that you instantiate the report definition service, you add all the parameters, and then you create the operations, and then you run it. So after you run it, then you have to, when you run it, it creates a report at the Google server, and then you have a download call. So in the earlier versions, there was, you have to really, it was a painful, because you have to um, it was asynchronous call to get your reports. I mean, first you have to run it, schedule it, and then you have to download it in a separate call. But in this latest version of V 2010 2000, I'm sorry, 201008, the process really is fast. So after running the report, you call the download functions. So what I'm doing here is that I'm defining the file name. See, if you see, my file name constitutes of kwperf, which is keyword performance report, and then client name, and then .txt, and then I'm storing it within the report date folder. So when it comes here, it creates a file like this, kwperf abc.txt, and then what I'm doing is that I'm really calling this download report functions. So again, this is a standard call for downloading the report. So I think that sort of explains, hope you got a good idea about how to use AdWords API to create a report. And I'll post the code to my forum, in my forum. But I think you can, if you search with AdWords API sample code for keyword performance report, probably you'll get this part. Only thing you have to remember is that how to really set the client ID for running it for multiple clients, and then how to do it for a different date range using a custom date range, custom date tag. So next we'll discuss about how to load the data in MySQL, which is pretty straightforward. Thank you.